guys, how's it going? I'm Allie.
And I'm Patrick.
And this is a story about two 30-year-olds who went to Australia for a year-long adventure, but instead got bushfires, torrential flooding, and now a global pandemic.
Yeah, what a fucking ripoff this place is.
Yeah, it's a fairy tale of a lifetime. Dream vacation.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
I'm thinking of switching my name to Patrick Bonner because that's how coronavirus started, and I think I have coronavirus.
Yeah, if you guys haven't noticed, this isn't how I normally sound.
Yeah, she didn't just start smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day.
I'm not just a smoker. I'm now the smoker with the hole in their throat.
Yeah.
That's how bad I sound. Actually, yesterday we did a little bit of recording, and I sounded so much worse. I sounded like this, and I couldn't bear to hear my voice, so we're re-recording it. I sound a little better, but I still sound like shit.
Yeah. So to catch you up, in case you haven't been watching the news.
Yeah, catch us up. What's happening?
There's a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
And it's getting nuts out there.
It's honestly ruining everybody's life.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
Yeah, this was supposed to be fun. And now it's just stressful.
It is. Like, we are living day to day. All my shoots have been canceled. I just got another cancellation this morning.
There's no comedy, everything, and you're not even allowed to laugh anymore. Do you know that?
Basically,
Yep.
yeah.
It sounds too much like a cough. And then as soon as you start coughing, they actually take you out back and they shoot you.
It's getting wild over here.
All right.
Wild West, for real.
Yeah, they just shut down all the restaurants and shit, like yesterday here in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to sit in a restaurant anymore.
No, yep, that's it. And Queensland, which is where the Great Barrier Reef is, just closed its border, so we're not doing that anymore.
Yep.
And it's only a matter of time before all the other states close their borders too, which begs the question, is the U.S. going to do the same thing? Are they going to do state to state?
That begs the question.
It begs the question.
Yeah,
I'm begging for
I've been these
a question.
questions. Yeah, please, Lord, give me more questions.
I need more questions. Don't give me answers. Give me more questions.
Yeah.
And I'll try to answer them.
I've got too many answers right now. I need more questions, please.
Yeah, we're not asking enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, I think people are, not to make it serious, but we don't have any answers.
No.
we should be begging for answers.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to last so much longer than people assume. People think like, oh, I just got to make it through 2 weeks of self-quarantine, then we good. And it's like, no, then we not good. Then we start again.
Yeah, because apparently if you come in contact with someone else for an extended period of time, that clock resets. So then you have to do another 2 weeks of quarantine. And even within Australia, if you cross a state border, you have to do another 2 weeks of quarantine. So like this just might be our life for the next few months.
It definitely will be. They better be, yeah. Time to dust off the old Xbox and get good at Rocket League again.
I know. Well, they don't even have that here. I cannot believe the amount of episodes that I've seen of Australian Survivor and Love Island here. It's insane, and I think it's legitimately making me dumber.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're pretty much living Australian Survivor and Love Island.
Yeah.
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 Just trying not to get voted off week to week. There's 2 of us here.
Yeah, who's gonna win? I don't know. It's Survivor out here.
Welcome to Love Quarantine.
Speaking of quarantine, let's talk about that a little bit, because last time we recorded the episode, we were at an Airbnb. We were on our way to St. Kilda because I was supposed to have a ton of shoots here. So we're here for 16 nights in a hotel. And it's a hotel, but they have a separate building where I think they're just putting foreigners and other people that they think are sick.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, like the main reception is in a very nice building, like 2 buildings down. And we're kind of in a crummy, old, like just a shit building. And one of our neighbors is from Israel. He literally has 2 cones in front of his door.
Yeah, he's taking his quarantine pretty serious, and I respect him for it.
Yeah.
Those Israelites, they know how to quarantine. They know how to put up their walls.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like, I treat myself like I am independent state of Israel and everyone else like they are Palestine. So I start lobbing mortars now. For defense. It's for defense.
Everyone around me hates me.
They hate me, so I started lobbing the mortars now. It's for preemptive defense. Well, happy Rosh Hashanah. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Yeah, his name's Russ, too, which is great.
Yeah, Rosh Hashanah is what we've been calling him. That's true, and a little racist.
So that's one of our neighbors. And then our other neighbor...
He died.
He
died.
Guys.
That's not a joke. He's dead. We
Were...
walked out yesterday morning, and there were a bunch of cops and an ambulance. And we were walking to grab some coffee, and I overheard one of the paramedics saying, "No, well, he's not contagious because he hasn't been breathing for the last 8 hours." And I was just like, oh, usually that's a dead person who doesn't breathe for 8 hours.
There was also zero sense of urgency. When the hotel owner was, like, showing them to the door, she was like, "Oh, yeah, don't worry, he's not breathing."
No, it wasn't. That was a paramedic.
Oh, really? I recognized the hotel owner.
No,
She was the same one who checked us in.
No, she wasn't there.
Oh.
She wasn't
Damn,
even
they
there.
all look the same. That's what happens when you're in quarantine. Everyone just starts to look alike.
All these white bitches look the same.
They all look the same. Yeah. No,
so we came back from the coffee, and we're like, oh, well, if the cops are still there, we should definitely ask them what the hell's going on. And we walked by, and there were 2 cops just sitting there. And I was like, hey, fellas, what gives?
Yeah,
what's going on in there? And they were like, oh, yeah, mate, the fella down here, he died. And I was just like, oh. Well, how? And they were like, well, why, it wasn't, he's nothing to be scared of, corona-wise, Where are you guys? And I was like, we're just around back and up the stairs. And he's like, oh, then you should be fine. And I was like, well, you see, that makes me think it is corona. If you ask how close we are and you think we're fine now. So I think he's dead. I think he died of corona.
Well,
I'm going to go on record and say I think he died of corona.
Immediately after that, they're like, oh, oi, how long have you guys been here?
Yeah. Where you guys from and how long you been here? And should I write you a ticket for being out of your assholes? We're
like, relax. We've been here since November. We just went out to get food. We don't have a stove or anything, so we need food. And we're here for 16 nights, and they're like, oh, okay.
I was just like, we didn't just come from the States. We've been here since November. We've been quarantining, kind of. And they're like, all right, yeah, sure, that doesn't sound right, but okay, we got a dead guy, we got to move, sorry.
Yeah, it's just... And then there was another hotel we were going to check into if the stunt shoot was still going to go on. And
Canceled.
They basically said, yeah, you can stay here, but only if we get to thumb through your passport and look at your visa to ensure that you literally haven't come here in the last month. And I was like, all right, well, now that's not happening anymore, so now what's next? I don't know. We literally, within the last hour, have been trying to figure out what's going to go down, and I think the only answer is to try to get home.
Yeah, so here are the options as we see them. Allie's shoots have canceled. All comedy is canceled. Like I said, if you laugh out loud, they'll take you in back and shoot you, because this is not funny. So we have no reason to stay here except to kind of limp our way financially to Japan, which is where Allie's reserve time will be.
Yeah.
And that's if it goes. You know what I mean? Like, right now it's out there. They haven't turned anything off, and it seems like it's going to go as prescribed. But, like, I'm a little bit of a pessimist, I think, in these times. Like, I'm looking at all this and thinking, this is going to get worse before it gets better, and a lot more things are going to cancel. old Al over here was
I'm
still...
a glass half full,
my
baby.
God. She was half full. I'm staring at a glass half empty, and you're like, no, it's mostly full.
I'm like, it's fine. Queensland just closed its borders. We can still go to the Great Barrier Reef.
I'm like, what planet are you living on? They're not going to let us in. We can't go scuba dive, get our bags, like do all that stuff. We're very little freedom of movement right now, and it's going to get tighter as people continue to ignore the quarantine rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As this gets worse, and it will get worse, like the numbers will spike, and we will hit those thresholds that exceed capacity at healthcare, and there are going to be people dying. Now, I don't know if there's going to be people dying in the streets. They're going to be dying with dignity in their hotel room right underneath us.
Yeah,
like that poor fella.
It's one thing to be quarantined in a hotel. It's a completely different thing to be quarantined in a hotel that's now haunted. Like last night, I swore I just heard so many more creaks and voices. Like it's creepy here now, and I want out.
Yeah. Well, we might be leaving, so. So the options are try and make it to Japan, assuming that it's going to go, like assuming that everything is going to hold the way it is now, which is everything's kind of shitty, but everything's mostly closed, but you can still kind of move around. I think those are going to start, those small abilities to move around the globe are going to be closing pretty systematically from here on out. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you see full countries just go into full isolation.
Yeah.
Just for the time being, and maybe semi-permanently. So I mean, Allie's very optimistic about some things. I'm less and less so. So the other option is we pack up our shit. We have a brief stopover in Sydney, figure out how to get our bags from our friend Tosh and Daryl's place, and then hop on a plane and fly back to the States.
Yeah.
In which case, we don't know what's waiting for us there, but we got to get to Colorado. We will then have to rent a car. We'll have to travel across the U.S. to the East Coast, and we'll either have to quarantine in Colorado or quarantine on the East Coast, neither of which is very good. And like we started off saying, I think we both have and have had the coronavirus.
Yeah, this was Pat got it first at our last place. You said you weren't.
I don't know why it feels like you're telling on me, and I'm mad at you now.
Well, I'm not telling on you.
Yeah, Pat got it first, so this is... I don't want to say it's all his fault, but everything that's happened after that has been his fault.
Well, yeah, so you got it. I was taking care of you doing food runs, and then I got it. Now you're taking care of me doing food runs. And, you know, it could just be the flu. I know a lot of people do have the flu. But specifically, this does feel like a lung thing.
Oh, yeah, it's the respiratory for sure.
Yeah, it's been a little bit hard to breathe, but nothing too crazy. And that's the thing that's been frustrating, too, is that there seems to be no clear guidance and no clear flow chart on what to do if you don't have it, but have to work an essential job if you do have it and you want to help, because essentially now we're immune to it. So there is a part of us that's like, okay, if we're immune to it, then how can we help? Like, this society around us is just closed, but things still need to happen for life to go on. There are people that still do have to go to work who haven't been infected and are at risk. Like, could we do that for them? Like, I'm surprised that they're not utilizing people who have already gotten it and have recovered.
Yeah, as the primary workforce.
Yeah.
Yep, if you've had coronavirus and you come out the other side, congratulations. You now have a job and you have to go. You know, the government should be paying you, but that would be if I were in charge of this shit, anybody who tested positive for coronavirus 2 weeks ago, guess what? You're now working the critical infrastructure jobs. Yeah. We're going to give you a crash course in whatever, and at a minimum, you're going to be a truck driver hauling shit that people need across the country. And you're going to be paid well, because it's on the back of those specific people, the people who have to work, the critical infrastructure that provides food, resources, medical equipment, all of the healthcare professionals, all of the crisis response and disease control professionals. Keeping them working will keep everything flowing.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can keep people with everything they need in their houses, I think they will tend to isolate longer.
Yes.
But people don't have answers. And I think it's incumbent on the government to find those people, to put them to work, to pay them well, because they are going to be overtasked.
Yeah.
And it will be on their shoulders and on their back that we get through this.
Yes.
You know, it certainly will be up to those people who are working tirelessly. These unskilled laborers, you know,
they're gonna be the unsung heroes.
Unsung, people should be singing about them.
Yeah.
And the government should be putting them forward, because that's how we're going to get through this. Is your everyday worker who has already made it through, who's healthy enough to get coronavirus, either be symptomatic or asymptomatic, make it through, test positive, and is now immune. Those are the people you need as the cornerstones of work.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we find those people. Doesn't even seem like we have enough tests to test the people that are already working, healthcare workers. It doesn't seem like we have enough tests to test the people coming into the ICUs at this point.
Yeah.
So I really don't know, but it seems like most of our government and private industry is running around with their heads cut off. And I don't think there's going to be much progress in the next month, which I think you'll see a total collapse of the self-isolation.
I mean, you have to, because people who are self-isolating, they're doing it because there's social pressure, there's the government closing down everything, and they're saying, hey, just hang tight for 14 days, maybe a little longer. But if we get to the 14 days and there's still no clear answer on how to move forward, people's survival instincts are going to kick in, and they're going to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I am making no money sitting here and waiting for an answer. Like, I need to take care of my family. I need to get out there and work and do something. I just don't know. Like, right now we're doing it because there is a hope that we are going to flatten the curve, but the people need to be constantly informed on what's next. There needs to be clear deadlines. If we get to this point and the numbers still aren't down, this is our next step, and this is the third step, and this is the fourth step. We're barely aware of step 1, let alone step 2 all the time. There just doesn't seem to be a clear way forward in terms of what these people can expect, because there are people that are staying home and getting paid. That's totally different than the people who are staying home and have lost everything. I really feel for those people, and I don't know what the answer is, but I imagine there needs to at a minimum be a flow chart, and if then for the people who are at a huge risk of depression and, just being completely overloaded financially because of everything they've lost.
Yeah, the bottom line is there needs to be very pronounced leadership overall with the game plan. Here's the worst case scenario, everyone. You need to listen to the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is this thing spikes quick. It's overloaded and there's people dying in the streets. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario is after 2 weeks, we flatten the curve so much that you guys can go back to enjoying a normal life. That is very unlikely, I think.
Yeah.
What's most likely is, and I don't think people have framed their mind for this, but what's most likely is that this quarantine procedure is going to, and the self-isolation is going to continue. People have framed it for 2 weeks, right? That's a bite-sized chunk that I think most people can just kind of wrap their head around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pay period.
It's a pay period. Most people they haven't thought, oh my God, this is going to extend past the Olympics. This is going to be through August, maybe. This might be through September. This isn't a seasonal disease, and flattening the curve is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
That means the better part of the year might be spent in solace. It might be spent isolated.
Yeah.
And what that looks like and how that breaks people, I don't know. I just don't see, after very long, people having the appetite to continue to quarantine themselves, to isolate themselves, to cut themselves off from, being physically healthy, emotionally healthy. meeting with people.
Yes,
There's just no way I think people will do that. And you'll see people start to break the quarantine, and you'll see the curve, if we flattened it at all, if it did get flattened, will spike. And we'll have both worst case scenarios, which is people will have to isolate way longer than they're expected, and we've overburdened the healthcare system. People just aren't mentally prepared for this, but it's because they don't necessarily have any answers.
Yeah.
Right? They're just waiting. And while waiting that's good enough for now, their patience will run out. They're good I don't know, good faith. They're acting in good faith without being paid. Mm-hmm. Isolating on their own. That's going to run out. That's why you're seeing governors call the National Guard in.
Yeah.
That isn't to help logistics, you know what I mean? That's to keep people inside. And that's like kind of strange.
Well, it's scary.
It's very scary.
How is that going to evolve?
In no great way, in my opinion. I do not see, very rarely does a government take civil liberties and then give them back. I haven't seen our government has been systematically taking our civil liberties since I've been alive.
Yeah.
Since the advent of the internet, they've been taking your privacy, they've been collecting your data. The Patriot Act, all of those things have been chomping down on your civil liberties, and you haven't seen a single one of them come back. And it was all done in the name of security post 9/11. Now we're living in a much more secure world. That's what those wars were for, right?
Yeah.
ISIS isn't a threat. The Taliban we've got peace with. But guess what? They haven't rolled back any of those civil liberties back to you. Right? So I don't know what's going to happen. I know they can't pay the National Guard indefinitely and have martial law indefinitely. We just don't have it in the budget. But what remains after that, I don't know. Because the government has an awful habit of keeping what they take.
You know what this kind of reminds me of?
Tell me.
In a weird... Do you remember? I don't know when this happened, but there was like a cruise ship with a bunch of students, either off the coast of China or Japan, and a ton of kids lost their lives because...
it was off the coast of Korea. Yeah,
Korea.
While I was there.
Yeah. A bunch of kids died because this ship was sinking, and the captain was over the intercom basically saying, everyone stay inside, stay calm, stay seated. And no one, despite the fact that the ship was sinking, no one actually was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm out, and jumped out. They all trusted like the captain to fix whatever was happening, and it ended up sinking, and he ended up killing himself. In a weird way, this kind of feels similar, just in the sense of right now there's a ton of us that don't know what's happening. It's a panic situation. It's a new situation that no one's been in, and we're all looking for that one voice to tell us what to do. And really, it's kind of the global voice is saying, okay, isolate, stay inside, we're going to get through this. The economy, we'll figure out a way to jumpstart it. And it's interesting because certain parts of the world react differently to that than others. Like parts of Asia, China, Japan, they have a high respect for authority. And that's part of the reason why all those Koreans died, is because that's embedded in their culture. The US, Australia, Europe, like, I don't know. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, who do you think is going to break isolation first? And how do you think that will change the scope of the spread of this virus?
It'll become, I think the first people to break their isolation will be the young and the fit. You're already kind of seeing that. I mean, the media has mislabeled it millennials, but millennials are, the youngest millennial is like 24 years old. Yeah. Generation Z is out there doing their thing on the beach and like at very low risk, right? Yeah. Like they kind of, I mean, I don't necessarily blame them. Everything they've seen from different generations and different political opinions is take, and if you can't survive it, whether that's financially or healthcare wise or like whatever, it's just social Darwinism. Everything is social Darwinism. That's what they've grown up with. It's just, oh, your political opinion? Well, we'll fucking, once we get the House or the Senate or the presidency, your political opinion means nothing. It's you versus me, you versus me, you versus me. And if you can't hack it, you just fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
That's what they've grown up with. That's what the media is convinced everybody the world is.
Yeah.
Right? So they're the first to break it. You're already seeing them at the beaches not giving a fuck. And like
yeah, Bondi Beach, the press conference.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was some guy, I don't know who. I assume maybe the leader of New South Wales or someone got up in front of everyone and was like scolding. Basically, no one, for those who don't know, Bondi Beach, huge tourist attraction right outside Sydney, beautiful beach. But there were photos and videos after this whole self-isolation thing took effect. People were just storming the beach. Like all these young people were just on the beach, and this guy had to go on television and scold everybody.
He's just like, guys,
here it is.
People do not need diseases to grow. Right? We limited gatherings of 100 or less. There are 500 people out here. Go home.
Go home.
Go home.
So now all the beaches are closed.
Yep, all the beaches. You can't go to the beach. But my point is, I don't think the youngest generation will be the first to leave their own isolation because it affects them the least.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just the world they've grown up in. And like every generation has done the most selfish thing for their generation, to include boomers. You know, boomers they've had a pretty easy run in terms of not having to fight a global war, in terms of not having to weather or being in a financially good spot for the most recent recession. They didn't have a major depression. This is their crisis. And unfortunately, none of the systems in place have been improved upon in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
So, like, all of the systems, to include the financial industry, like healthcare is the most obvious.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the stock market, which can't plan for one day in advance. You know, like, there is no plan. There is no way. There's no good foundation from which to deviate because we have improved on nothing except our military. And we're about to use our military to keep people inside. My opinion is we should be using our military to help shore up the logistics and supply lines, right? The manufacturing we've had has all been outsourced to China, which is just like, what an oversight. Wow, can't believe we did that. Yeah. We should have figured out a way to keep companies here and also paying a living wage to the people here so we can keep manufacturing here. But like none of that happened. Mm-hmm. So this is where we are. We've got to figure out a way to enlist these gigantic corporations that have been getting tax break after tax break. It's just like, you know what the free ride was for? For now. So we can hijack your logistics and supply lines and your overstocked stores of all of these critical supplies that we need now, or people will die. Yeah. And that's just where we are. Now, I have a pretty pessimistic view because I think we've set ourselves up for monumental traps, just like when we're walking headfirst into them and we have the ability to see all of them, but we can't avoid any of them at this point. And I think this will get worse, and it does scare me. I don't know all of the fallout, but it is like we're in this for the long haul, in my opinion. Yeah, and there's like a lot of things that I think are going to fall that people don't realize.
It's a new reality that we have to get ready for, and we're seeing it even just in bite-sized chunks today. I mean, before we got sick and before the self-isolation, we were going out to places that just weren't serving us inside the store anymore. If we got coffee, they were like, okay, wait for it outside the perimeter of our restaurant. Or we would go to a place and order food, but they wouldn't have physical menus. They had a QR code that we had to scan, and I had to use some guy's hotspot.
That was nice of him, though.
Yeah, it was super nice of him because we don't have dedicated phone plans or anything. We're just operating on Wi-Fi. But to order food, and there's also places even in Sydney. My phone, unfortunately, was too old to do it, but they have these little just pucks that you tap with your phone, and you can order and pay everything online before you ever see a server, and then it just all comes out to you. So I mean, the way that we do business, just in terms of what we do in restaurants and bars to pay for things, I think that'll change. I think maybe we'll move more toward a cashless society, kind of like what Japan's trying to do. And which is unfortunate for us now because we have so much cash.
We cash heavy, baby.
Oh, that's all we got.
Yeah.
And it's just people straight up are like, no, I'm sorry, we can't.
We're not touching your dirty, germy money.
I know. I just saw her use it as a tissue. I'm not touching. I'm joking. I don't use cash as tissues. But
I use them to clean off my bats. Because my bats are wet, so I got to towel them down with all this cash. I think the video just went off.
Oh, yeah. Good one. Good call.
What should I talk about while you're up there doing that?
Great question.
All right, yeah, so cashless society. We saw a lot of the restaurants closing down. Yesterday, they made it official. So you couldn't serve people in your restaurant. Though we got turned away, it seems like you could still serve alcohol. So it seems like bars are still open, as long as you keep it under a threshold. But 2 days ago, last week was St. Patty's Day. Yeah, exactly. A week ago was St. Patty's Day. And there were people crammed in Irish pubs.
Oh, yeah.
Gigantic crowds of people just boozing. Australia didn't take this very serious, and I think you're going to see a giant spike in their numbers as well.
I think that's why they're trying to overcorrect. Now, all of a sudden, everything's closing, to include state borders, which I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I thought they would close the national border before they closed state borders, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, closing a national border is pretty drastic. State borders are a smaller level of government, theoretically.
Right.
So, it's just a smaller step, but it's a step indicative of what is likely to be a national isolation policy.
Yeah, no, it's so scary. And it's scary living day to day. I fly by the seat of my pants most of the time when I travel, and I'm just kind of, whatever happens, happens. But when it's your life and your jobs and your income, it's just, man, I just really feel for so many people out here that are going through the same thing. I just can't, I don't know.
You can't what?
I just can't imagine what tomorrow's going to look like, let alone next week, let alone next month, let alone the summer.
In my opinion, that's the job of our elected officials.
Yeah.
If you are in a position of power, it's because you were chosen to lead, and you need to be giving answers, and transparent answers, not bullshit.
Yeah.
Not I think this is going to work. It might not. Not that type of shit. But here are our decision points. Mm-hmm. If we reach this amount of people infected, it's because this and this did not work. So we have to move to this step. If we move to this step, then this and this will happen.
Yeah.
It will last this long, and this is the criteria of success. Can anybody out there tell me what success looks like?
I have no idea.
Nobody knows. And how can we measure it? How can we measure if this is working? We know how it's not, is if we continue to see the rise in COVID-19 or coronavirus patients. But that is only a function of how many tests we have. You know what I mean? There's just so many breakdowns in how to measure anything.
Yeah.
So we need knowledgeable professional leaders who won't give us good news if there isn't good news.
Yeah, I think
who will prep us and have a plan when I say us, I mean society at large, for what will be an enduring policy of isolation on an individual basis. How are they going to enforce it? Is going outside really illegal? Is it? It's a public health risk, but is it really illegal? Is it punishable by a fine? Is it punishable by imprisonment? House arrest? What is the policy?
Well, that's what they're doing here. In Australia, in New South Wales, they basically, if they see you out and about, they have the right to question you. And if you are found to be breaking your 14-day isolation, they can fine you up to $20,000 or put you in jail for a year. There was a girl, a backpacker, who went to New Zealand. So New Zealand closed its borders. It's doing the exact same thing most other countries are doing. If you're coming from any other country, you have to do 14 days of self-isolation. And she tried to check into a hostel, and at the hostel, I guess she checked in, and they're like, okay, just so you know, you got to be here for 14 days. And she's like, nah, I was maybe just gonna like do a group tour in like 3 days, see what's out there. I hear this country's beautiful. And they called the cops and deported her that same day.
Huh.
So, I mean, they're cracking down. Like, they're getting real. Like, they are involving the law. And, right now, the same with the cops out just outside. Someone had just died, and they were like, well, wait a second. How long have you guys been here? It's only a matter of time before if we do have to continue this and people start breaking isolation because they're like, well, fuck this. I need to get food, or I need to make a living, or I need to get money somehow. They're going to have to enact like legitimate curfews and legitimate police actions as a result of people. And what does that look like? Are people going to push back?
Yes.
It's
well, here's the thing. It's the more they enforce it and don't give answers, the less it's justified, no matter what. Even if it's justified, the less transparent they are with what information they have, and they have it.
Yeah.
It's not like this information doesn't exist. There is a likely scenario here that we aren't seeing, and we aren't seeing it probably, and this is the pessimist in me, probably because it's bad news.
Yeah.
If it were good news, hey guys, if you isolate, we will flatten this curve. We will be able to get, you haven't heard anything definitive saying we will have enough resources for every man, woman, and child in this country. We will have enough resources for all of the healthcare professionals in this country. We will have tests that work, that are accurate. We don't have any of that. And without those reassurances, without them even saying, we don't have. Guys, we don't have tests. We don't have this. We don't have that. Here is the guidance until we do. We are working on getting that, and our plan, if we can't, is this. We need the bad news as well.
Yeah. People
have a right to know, and if they don't, they will be breaking curfew. They will be breaking self-isolation, and they will be doing it in, the simplest terms of self-preservation. Under no guise of anti-authoritarianism. That's not what this will be. There aren't going to be people rioting in the streets over policy or over law. It will be people rioting in the streets over going stir crazy and not having either the answers they need or very possibly the resources they need to survive in isolation for this long.
Yeah, the ship is sinking. And once the water gets up to our waist, people are going to start thinking about jumping ship.
You're 100% right.
And we need to just be ready for that, I think.
Metaphor, yeah.
Yeah, it's just...
And that's what I fear the National Guard is for. Luckily, the National Guard is a bunch of fucking civilian.
Oh, hey, I'm a reservist. We work very hard.
The National Guard couldn't shoot the broadside of a barn if they figured out how to use their weapon.
Oh my God. Some of the fattest people I know are active duty. So.
It would be really funny. Well, I mean, that's kind of true. But it would be pretty funny watching the National Guard try to suppress an uprising.
Oh, man. Well, anybody. Yeah. It's unlike anything we've seen before. This is all so new, and it's constantly changing. And yeah, like I said, we're just taking it one day at a time, and we'll see. I guess one thing that was kind of cool, just another side note on how society might change post COVID-19, but we saw a comedy show on Twitch.
Yeah, that was it's not the future. It can't. It won't work.
I had a good time with it. I wasn't sure how it was going to work. It was my first time with Twitch, but basically a show that we used to frequent when we lived in Fort Collins at the Colorado Room went on Twitch to do comedy, and it was pretty well produced. I was actually really impressed.
It was well produced, but I mean, comedy is such a specific thing that you need. It's almost like a mass hypnosis of the crowd, where you just the room does have to be dark. Everybody has to be kind of packed in. The lower the ceiling, the better.
Yeah.
The better the lighting on stage, the better it all is. Like, it is almost like people laugh together if they can't be seen laughing as an individual.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they feel safe. It's like very weird. It's like if it's very rare that like half the room will laugh. It's either everybody's laughing at a joke or almost nobody's laughing at a joke, and there's a couple of people laughing at you bombing. But that's like, for the most part, if half the room is laughing, then everybody's laughing.
Yeah,
it's like people feel comfortable laughing if there's other people laughing around them. If they can see everybody else, they're just not going to laugh because they know for whatever reason it's exposing.
Yeah.
Is
that why maybe like corporate events, it's like hit or miss because the lights are on and everyone's kind of seating?
For sure. You don't want to be cackling at some particularly objectionable joke next to your boss. Or if you're a boss, you don't want to laugh at anything for fear that someone's going to look at you and go, oh, he laughed at that thing, or she laughed at that thing. That was, about that crippled boy. He or she hates crippled boys. I'm not working for them. There's an EO complaint here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What they did was they did a comedy show on Twitch, and they had people in their living rooms via their phone doing a comedy set to a bunch of people laughing. And you can hit like an exclamation point and add laughter, and that does make it a little bit more convincing. Yeah. It adds like a laugh track to the thing. But it is awkward, and it is tough, and it won't be the future of comedy.
Oh, no, but, I mean, it was just something interesting and brand new that I'd never seen before. Of all the shows that we've been to and all the amounts of comedy specials you made me watch, I mean, that was just a new aspect of comedy I haven't seen before. A creative way to get through this COVID-19 stuff.
A buddy of mine set up a comedy show in a parking lot with a transistor radio. Like that you could set, if you were within like 200 meters from where he was, you could set your radio dial to like 97.3 or whatever.
Awesome.
And he had comedians rotating from their car over to where he had the mic set up in a parking lot, and everybody else was just in their car, isolated, with the radio station on, listening to somebody do jokes in the middle of a parking lot.
Wow.
Which I thought that was pretty cool. that one I thought was pretty
That
funny.
is very unique. It's very creative. Hell yeah.
Oh, you know what we didn't do at the beginning?
Plug.
Yeah.
Plug.
Guys,
plug it up.
You're listening to this. You're on quarantine. Get somebody else to listen to this. All right? We need more listeners.
Yes.
All right? We got no shooting gigs.
we got nothing,
no
guys.
Production, no comedy.
This is the only thing we have left.
This is just us talking to you now.
Yep.
And we want to talk to more yous. So get other yous out there listening. If you guys have left us a review, awesome. The next part of your homework is to get one other person to listen.
Yes.
All right? And if you guys haven't left us a review yet, please go onto our iTunes, give us a 5-star, write something nice. That'd be awesome.
Do it, for real. We love you guys. Instagram is Work Our Way. We have a TikTok now. If you guys are on that, Work Our Way, you can write in at workourwaypodcast@gmail.com or check out the website, www.workourway.com. We're going to try to get creative. We are in the process of returning home, which is going to be a little chaotic, but we do still want to make some funny content for you guys. So we're going to be hopefully pushing some new stuff out next week.
Yeah.
So look for that.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll
Awesome.
see you later.
See ya.
Bye.